Hey, third graders, welcome back. We're going to dive right in today for our next reading text. It happens to be in our text collection, which is volume 2. Now, we were in volume 1, and we're going to start with the story called Knots on a Counting Rope. I want you to look at that picture and think about what kind of comes to your mind. Immediately, I think you see feathers, right? You can see an older man and a younger man. You can probably see the braid here. If you look on the left side of this page, you might be able to see some really decorative beading. So hopefully you recognize this to be a story about the indigenous people. We sometimes call them Native Americans. And we're going to learn a little bit in this particular story we're going to always dig into the characters, right? But we're going to learn kind of in this story about central message and lessons and the morals of the story. Okay, we're going to dig into that a little bit deeper. And I want you to be paying attention that this is a story. It's called an oral history, right? It's not a pretend story, but that's something that this culture kind of passes down, right? So we're going to really look and kind of describe these characters and explain how their actions, what they do in the story, how those actions transmit or kind of pass on their experiences in life. So we're going to read part of this story today. We're going to finish it tomorrow. You're going to have an assignment in Google Classroom. So be thinking about what's happening in the story and pay close attention to the illustrations. We've talked a lot about how illustrations really tell a story as well. Okay, so you'll notice there's an older man and a younger boy. You can see, right, they've got some kind of a rope, and the story is called Knots on a Counting Rope. So we know that that's some kind of a counting rope. Tell me the story again, grandfather. Tell me who I am. I have told you many times, boy. You know the story by heart. But it sounds better when you tell it, grandfather. Then listen carefully. This may be the last telling. Before I continue, do you notice that the lines kind of hop back and forth, right? Your eyes are kind of going in a zigzag. Why is that happening? That's showing the dialogue, the conversation between the two different people, right? So when it's on the outside, it's the boy. When it's on the inside, it's the grandfather talking, okay? No, grandfather. There will never be a last time. Promise me that. Promise me. I promise you nothing, boy. I love you. That is better than a promise. And I love you, grandfather. But please tell me the story again, please. Once there was a boy child. No, grandfather, start at the beginning. Start where the storm was crying my name. You know the story, boy. Tell it. No, grandfather, no. Start. It was a dark night. It was a dark night, a strange night. Your mother and father and I were safe in the hogan, and the sheep were safe in the pen, when a wild storm came out of the mountains crying, boy, boy. And your mother said, I hear it in the wounded wind. A boy child will be born tonight. Then what happened, grandfather? I rode up the canyon fast to bring the grandmother. It is not a good sign for a child to be born without a grandmother's blessing. Was the wind still calling for me, grandfather? Yes, boy, it was whipping up sand as sharp as claws and crying like a bobcat. Boy, boy. Were you afraid, grandfather? I was much afraid. How much afraid? Heart-pounding afraid, boy. Remember, look at those illustrations. Think about who was just described in the story. Then what happened, grandfather? Just as I was born? Tell me that part. It was strange, strange. Just as you came forth and made your first cry, the wind stopped howling, and the storm was over, and the night became as quiet as soft falling snow. The grandmother took you up in her arms and said, "He will walk in beauty to the east, to the west, to the north, to the south. He will walk in beauty forever." And I was born strong, wasn't I, grandfather? No, you were not strong. You were sick and frail. We thought you would die. But I didn't die, did I? Tell me about that, grandfather. I'm noticing a lot of similes in this story. Right on the left page here, page 8, talked about the wind whipping up sand as sharp as claws. Can you kind of feel what that must have been like? Sand as sharp as claws. You know, when it's windy and things are flying around, right? That would hurt. Over here, too, talking about, I lost my place, but there was a simile on this side, too. Let's see if I can find it before we turn the page. Oh, yes, the night became as quiet as soft falling snow. So you can picture that in your mind. Okay, so far, right, here's the grandfather and the grandson talking about a story of the night he was born. And here's a picture of the mother and the grandmother and the newborn baby. They thought he was going to die, but he didn't. So now grandfather's going to continue the story. All night you lay silent, with your eyes closed, your breath too shallow, too weak for crying. And you carried me out to see the morning, grandfather, but I did not open my eyes. Tell me that part. Two great blue horses came galloping by and they stopped. Grandfather, they stopped and looked at me. And you raised your arms to the great blue horses. And I said, "See how the horses speak to him? They are his brothers from beyond the dark mountains. This boy child will not die." That is what you said, isn't it, grandfather? Yes, boy, that is what I said. This boy child will not die. The great blue horses have given him the strength to live. You have to be watching, right, how the conversation changes in that zigzag to know who's speaking. Right? So now this newborn baby is reaching out for these blue horses that have gone by. Okay? So they're saying he's not going to die. They've given him the strength to live. Okay? So, like I said, the illustrations in this story tell a lot along with the words. We're going to finish the story tomorrow, but I'm wondering what you're thinking, right? What's happening in the story? Why is there a counting rope? And why are there knots in it? It sounds like the boy knows this story, so why would the grandfather be giving him a rope with knots? What's the significance of that in the story? Right? I want you to be thinking hard about what you just read and what you just heard. You're going to answer some questions today in Google Slides. So make sure you open that assignment in Slides so that you can type right on it. And then don't forget to turn it in when you're all done. And tomorrow, I believe tomorrow, we'll finish the other part of the story. All right, have a great day.